to the Reach the Stars podcast. I'm your host, Janna Willoughby Lore, and today my guest is one of my favorite people from all time, my friend Lionel Nazario. He is living in Brooklyn right now. He's an author, a martial arts teacher, a health coach, a small-time actor, previous model. I'm going to throw that in there. Loves philosophy, law, organic bacon, and camping out in the woods, among other things. One thing I definitely want to add is that of all the people in the entire world, like most people that know me know that I'm like a passionate, excitable individual. The only person in the world that is on par with my passionate excitability is this guy right here. So when the two of us get together, it's like, yeah.
That's right. Watch out.
Yes, we have some pretty intense conversations. So without further ado, I was wondering if you would like to tell everyone a little bit more about you and where you come from.
Sure. Thank you, Janna. I appreciate it. And thank you for having me here. I'm excited, for the future that you've got going on. I've walked an interesting road, which, give me some interesting perspective on a lot of things, that are going on now and the lead up to it all. So I started off on Long Island as a little kid, and then my parents had the bright idea to get us out of there. So I went up to the Finger Lakes area, upstate New York. And, that's where I spent my youth running around doing different things. And, what can I say? The small town life has a different set of experiences for a person, especially a person who likes to live a little bit outside of the normal bounds. A place like, cities such as Buffalo or New York is obviously going to be a bit more tolerant of, personal weirdness. Than a little place like Watkins Glen, which is where I, found myself going to school as I got a little older. Without getting too deep into it, I'm sure you'll have questions. The road led me back to New York, and I've seen and done a lot of interesting things along the way. I've been blessed with opportunities to do, the different things that you've mentioned. No offense to anybody who's got one singular passion or career path and they're totally into it. But I'm a little schizo. I like to do a lot of different things. I like to sit down and read the books. I also like to hit things and throw weights around, So, New York has enabled me to do that. So if for nothing else, I'm grateful for that. Cause I've had some fun experiences over the years.
Yeah. I think that's part of why we get along so well, is that both of us are not just like, this is the one thing that we do. And it's just kind of like, we both have that same kind of personality. Like, oh, I could do this a little while. I could do that a little while. Let's do all these things at the same time.
Absolutely. Taste the rainbow, come on.
Exactly. So full disclosure, we used to date a really long time ago. And we
met. Good dates too. I said good dates too.
Oh yeah, all good dates. Yeah. You're like my favorite ex.
Thank you.
Had any fights, it was just like, oh, that's cool. It was great. We had great times. And we met in a random circumstance where you were working at a coffee shop with a friend of mine, and she was getting out of work, and she's like, we should go and hang out. And when I got out of work, I'm like, yeah, totally. Let's go hang out. And she's like, yeah, there's this guy that I work with, and he wants to come hang out with us. Can he come too? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so I meet up with her, and you come riding up on your bike. And at this point in my life, I was really feeling like defeated about myself. And I was just out of like a really long, super crappy relationship that made me feel like I wasn't a worthy person. And I had spent my entire like teenage years of my life chasing after guys who didn't like me. And it was tough to like always feel like I was like wanting people who didn't want me back. And it takes a toll on somebody's psyche to like live in that zone. And the relationship that I had been in, he cheated on me while he was living in my house, and I had to like throw him out. It was like a big thing. So this was like the first summer that I was actually like me as an adult. I had just turned 20, and I was like, I am reclaiming myself in this world. And this is like early in the summer. I think it was like May, maybe early June, like right around your birthday. And you come riding up to my house on your bike. And I was like, are you shitting me right now? And I mean, at the time, we have to preface this. So at the time, you were on work release. I did not know.
That's right.
You were on work release, and
there's backstory to that for sure.
Yes, we're gonna get into some of that backstory. But part of being on work release was where you were before you were on work release. So let's just say you were a little bit stacked, like just a little bit. And
I had spare time on my hands.
A lot of spare time on your hands. So for me, I was just like, who is this person? This is crazy. I'm going to go for this. And the rest, as they say, is history. And I think a big part of my superhero stage persona, when I get up and I perform for people and like feeling kind of invincible and like I could, have anything, take anything, and like really like grab life by the horns, is all because of the experiences that we had together. So I'm like super grateful for the times that we spent together.
I am too.
I'm wondering if you'll tell everyone a little bit about what brought you to that point in our lives.
Yeah, gladly. Which, real quick before I dive into that, I will have I'm not sure if I ever really shared this with you. Probably not at the time because it's only something I really realized reflecting on it. But that time in Buffalo was sort of a time of self-realization for me too. It was one thing to be in good shape. Like I was fine with myself, but it's another thing to then realize like, actually I'm in such a good place that other people are really appreciating me too. That was kind of new. I didn't get that kind of appreciation in my hometown. So that was kind of new and definitely helped me to form that, as you put it, sort of superhero stage persona, which I think is a super useful thing for anybody to have. I mean, we should all have a little superhero in our pocket, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm so honored to have played a part in you realizing that about yourself. And I was sort of figuring that out too at the time. So yeah, those were good times. And so what brought me there? Yeah, good question. This will be, I'll make it brief, but, this will be a tale that a lot of people have heard before, sadly, because it's pretty common, some of the injustices that brought me to that place. But I honestly have no regrets. And maybe we'll touch upon that at the end. So once upon a time, I found myself really interested in hallucinogens. And just to put that in perspective, what had happened was I realized as a teenager when I was in high school, I realized that I was being lied to. And this is one of the reasons why I do not advocate parents lie to their kids for any reason. If there's something you can't tell your kids, you just tell them, hey, you know what, I can't tell you because, say why. Because it'll hurt grandma's feelings, because you're just too young to really grasp this yet, but I'll tell you when you're older. Whatever you need to tell them, but don't freaking lie to them. That includes Santa Claus. That's my personal opinion. But don't lie to the kids, anybody. Don't lie to the kids. Because if you mess up that trust, they may start looking for truth on their own terms. And it can lead to dangerous places. Thank God I came out of it all right. But I realized I was being lied to. All drugs are bad and they'll kill you and make you unemployed was basically the party line at the time in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, totally. Like the fried egg in the pan all day.
Yeah, the fried egg in the pan. This is your brain on drugs. Right? So when I realized as a teenager that was a load of BS, or at minimum, an oversimplification of a complicated subject. Mm-hmm. I started looking for the truth, and so I started looking into hallucinogens, and I had and I had an opportunity to try LSD once, and it was a mind blowing experience. I mean that in a positive way. I'll be the first one to admit that it's extremely powerful, and things that are powerful, like guns, fire, and LSD, need to be treated with respect and used very, very carefully. But with that having been said, I was interested. So long story short, I started selling it locally to friends, people that I knew. And well, let's just say that I got blown in by a so-called friend who set me up to get himself out of trouble, which happened. I mean, I knew what I was doing. I was 19 years old. I was old enough to know what I was doing to an extent. I did not realize that my ex-girlfriend's older brother who was the district attorney in this small town, I did not realize that he really had it out for me. So when these charges came in, he pursued them very aggressively. And I'd like to take a moment to talk about the charges, because this is a society lesson that I think it's really important that people understand, what has happened in certain places. And I'm speaking about New York State, which some people know. I know Janna, the Rockefeller drug laws that were put into effect back in the 70s, and in pretty much full effect until I want to say it was about 2008 or so, when they got rolled back significantly. But these Rockefeller drug laws, they're named after the former governor in New York, Nelson Rockefeller. But that's my opinion. Anyway, so they set up mandatory minimums for people that had drug charges. And what that effectively did was it took away the judgment power of judges, right? Like a judge is supposed to, shockingly judge a situation and then pass a judgment based off of, different factors. Well, the mandatory minimums made it so that if you were caught selling a certain amount of a substance, there's no need for exercising judgment. We got it right here in a chart for you that tells you how many years you must give this person. So that's how I found myself as a 19-year-old who just turned 20, first-time offender, nonviolent, right? I wasn't even making good money off of this. I was doing this because I wanted people to try LSD and get enlightened. I mean, it sounds stupid maybe, but that's what I was thinking. I was 19. What can I say? So I got charged with an A2 felony. Now, for people who don't know how the legal system, penal law goes, premeditated murder, that'll get you an A1. Second degree murder, that'll get you an A2. Selling LSD in the quantities that I was selling, it will also apparently get you an A2. Rape, on the other hand, no matter how severe, that's a B. So just for a little perspective, right? Again, this is New York State. It may be different in other places, but when I learned that, I got pretty pissed off because I know what I did was illegal, but I know that it wasn't rape. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it shouldn't be one tiny step away from premeditated murder.
Outlandish stuff. So, that was educational for me. But anyway, so, I go through the system and I got a 3 to 9 years. And this was a step down. It was supposed to be 5 to 15 years. Step down was 3 to 9 years. So that was my sentence. And I, got the pleasure of hopping around the New York State correctional system. Where I learned a lot. And as we were talking about earlier, I had all this time on my hands. And there came a day where I said, it would be a shame if I was here for a few years and came out exactly the same way or worse. That would be a crying shame. And, a lot of wisdom in there, I have to say, for all of the ignorance and all of the stupidity that does take place in the prison system, a lot of wisdom, a lot of sharp people. And I remember there's this one man, rather large African fella, and he said, you can do something with the time, or you can let the time do you. I mean, I may have screwed that up slightly, but I understood what he was saying. I'm going to be here regardless. So what am I going to do at that time? So anyway, I started working out, reading books, and, found myself on the other side of it on work release in Buffalo, where I met your wonderful self and had a lot of interesting bike rides in the middle of the night.
And for me, it was funny because at that time in my life, because I was just out of something that was like super, super serious, I was like excited to have something that in my brain, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like, this is just going to be like a fling. I've never had a fling in my entire life. And I was like, oh, this is going to be cool. It'll be like a fling. Like, I don't even care if he's smart or whatever. Like, this is just going to be fun. And the first time we actually hung out, like just the two of us, and I was like, holy shit. Like, this guy is not any of those things that like at the time, your current appearance was like, people would see you and be like, yo, who's that guy? You know what I mean? It was just like,
totally.
Yeah.
The joke that I used to make to people was, I'm like a girl with large breasts. People don't see anything but the muscles, Yeah, like, you got to get past that.
Yeah, like the chin, muscles, for sure. And so for me, it was just really interesting to think I was in a mindset that I was like, oh, this is going to be like meaningless. And then like within one day of hanging out, I was like, not meaningless, super cool. This is going to be really fun. And I'm really, really glad that I like got ballsy and asked you out. It was funny. So I was like,
yeah, I remember where I was too when you called me. It's funny because I didn't expect that at all. I was actually at my parents' house, further east. I wasn't in Buffalo that weekend, and you were like, "Hey, we should hang out." I was like, "I'd love to, but I'm in Schuyler County right now." But yeah, I do remember that.
And so we had great times that whole summer. And then you got your work release switched. I don't even remember what the circumstances were for that, but it got switched.
The clock ran out in Buffalo is really what happened. They gave me 6 months in Buffalo, and then I had to go back. Yeah.
So you ended up out near where your parents' house was, and through like totally crazy, random, stupid circumstance, unintentionally like violated your parole and got thrown back in jail.
That's right. Yeah.
Without any warning.
Yeah. So that's another trap that, I think it would be safe to say that flawed systems are a subject that's in the air right now, right? So let's talk flawed systems, the work release system it's a neat idea, but, it's inherently flawed. I mean, like the entire, criminal justice system, it's got some serious flaws. And so focusing on this one, yeah, as you said, here I am, I'm on work release. I'm expected to work. I mean, you have to work on work release. That's how it goes. In Buffalo, no problem. Walking distance, there's buses, right? I go back to upstate New York, rural area, no buses. I'm not allowed to drive. That's one of the provisions of my release is no license, no driving. What a challenge. So, did I unintentionally violate? No, I very much intentionally was driving to work. But it was either violate by driving to work or violate by not going to work.
There's no way to get there. Like there was no Uber.
Thank you. Right. Nowadays, maybe, but there was no Uber. There were literally no options. Both my parents had jobs. There were literally no options. So I did what I had to do. But anyways, yes, you're right. So, parole, Department of Parole, work release, they found out that I was driving around and pulled me back in. Yeah. It was pretty aggravating. And I know that, I'm not the only one that this happens to. I mean, I'm certain that this happens all the time. And, and it really it's such an injustice because although I was able to rise above it because I had good friends who came and wrote me letters and visited me and stuff like that. And I had good family that stuck around, through these challenging times. And I was wise enough to be patient and understand that like, this sucks and this is not fair, but it does have a sunset, you know what I mean? And so, I just kind of had to hold out for that. But yeah, incredible mistreatment on many, coming from many different angles in that system. It really seems that their intention is not so much to help people back into society as it is to really just control people. And that's it. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but that was my experience. Yeah. Nonsense type of stuff. Work, but don't drive, nonsense.
Yeah, and especially that, like, for a minor violation such as driving yourself to work, like there was no wiggle room in there for you to say, like, I'm only just trying to, fulfill going to work, like, in any way that I can. That the amount of time that they put you back in for was almost as long as your initial sentence before they let you out in the first place. So it was like almost as much time for driving yourself home from work as it was like selling an entire vial of acid to an undercover cop. Like that they were the same amount of time behind bars. Yeah. And that's crazy.
It's crazy. Well, I mean, that's just how it happened to work out in my situation. Obviously if it was something else, it might not have, lined up so evenly, but yeah, how crazy is that? As it turned out, time I spent before was very similar to the time I spent after. Yeah. Ludicrous stuff. Yeah. Absolutely ludicrous. So, I'm definitely, an advocate as vocal as I can manage, for a total reform of the whole system there. I mean, so, you mentioned one of the things I love is philosophy and law. And, so a philosophy of law, another way of saying that is jurisprudence. I'm a huge fan of American jurisprudence, and which is really just a way of saying that I actually love the American system of law and government as it was originally conceived. And I really think that, having been through the ringer and having been, we were talking about ethnicity last night. I mean, I'm a mutt in so many different ways. I got so many different things going on. I've been discriminated against because people thought I was Hispanic. I've been discriminated against because people thought I was pure white bread. I mean, so I've seen it from many different angles. The flaw is not actually in the design of the system. The flaw is in the execution and the application and the people that get involved. We don't actually have the justice system and even the political system. We don't actually have what we're supposed to have according to the original design. So I think that's really important for people that are, whatever part of the struggle you're involved in, recognize that it's not a flaw in the original concept. It's a flaw in execution. Said right there, all men are supposed to be created equal. Now, did they forget maybe women? Yes. Did they not actually, give equal rights to every man? Yes. But the idea was on the mark. So we really need to just clean out the garbage. It's a great concept that's been trod through the mud.
Exactly. I think the intentions have power to create a new normal that is equitable and fair for everyone. I mean, the foundations of America on paper sounds so great. It sounds so great.
Yeah.
And I think we do have potential to become a new normal. It's just going to take a whole lot of work and a whole lot of hope from a lot of people. And like there is with any movement. I have a poem that I wrote that's like a poem or a song or whatever, play with the band. And it's about Black Lives Matter, but the one verse of it says, "Now a movement has been born." So of course there's got to be resistance. But that's how you're gaining ground. To make change, you got to be persistent. And I think that that's just like such a valid lesson for the entire world, that just because something currently is against the law doesn't mean that law is right, and that you shouldn't fight against it. And that, for instance, that it was like totally fine for a cop to kneel on some guy's neck as far as like what they were allowed to do. And now they're like, maybe that's wrong. And now they're like, maybe we should not have that be a thing that's allowed. And I think, of all of the things that the founders of this country wrote on paper, our right to protest and rise up against the laws of our system when they're not serving our people is the most important thing that they wrote in there, that we all have, right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And if that life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness doesn't apply to Black people, that doesn't apply to trans people, that doesn't apply to anyone who feels othered, then it's
equal protection under the law is, I mean, there's no debating that should be a thing. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, we have a long road on our way to, this imaginary land called perfection. But yeah, we've got to see where there's room for improvement, especially when it's simple. I think of the same-sex marriage thing is an example I like to give people, because, and this is where our system isn't working the way it's supposed to work. It's been corrupted. This is a nation that was actually founded on the foundation is common law, right? There's different systems of law in the world. I won't go deep down the rabbit hole on it, but if you were to get online and search systems of law in the world, you'd find you have this thing called common law as a foundation in certain places, and America is one of them. And really what it boils down to is you're not supposed to harm other people, right? And everyone is supposed to be treated equally. It's super simple stuff. So when you see something that doesn't conform to that, we should all be like, wait a minute, what's going on there? So what is marriage? Well, marriage is a legal contract. Okay, well, it's a legal contract between two people who want to merge their households and lives and do it sort of under the umbrella of the state so that they can share certain benefits, health and death benefits and yada, 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 right? It's just a legal thing. It has nothing to do with God or the lack thereof. It has nothing to do. It's a state thing. It's a legal arrangement. It's a contract. So how could we not offer that to people, regardless of their arrangement? You know what I mean? Like if you wanted to merge your possessions with your donkey, why not? So if a man and a man want to merge their possessions, why not? It's a legal contract. There should never even have been half the debate on that there was, frankly. So, I mean, I use that as an example just to say how we're running around the mulberry bush for no reason. Stop already. They want a contract. Are you going to give them a contract or not? Easy. You know what I mean? That's ridiculous. We shouldn't even waste the time talking about that. Obviously, they can do that.
Oh, my God. You're getting all fired up. I love it.
You know, stupidity kills me. What can I say?
Okay, so I want to fast forward a little bit.
Yeah.
And I want you to talk about what you have been doing more recently. Yeah, since you have become an official free man.
Yeah.
But before we hit on that, I wanted to ask you that as a prior A2 felon, are you currently allowed to vote?
Negative. Now, I will say that is by choice, though. I could jump through various hoops that the state would like me to jump through in order to get my, I forget what it's called. I want to say it's called a certificate of good conduct. But anyway, there's a process that you can go through whereby you can get, certain civil rights restored, among them, the right to vote. But I'm frankly good with it. I'm not really interested. I'm actually a lot more interested in being able to serve on a jury, do jury duty. But I'm just not playing that game with them. I've got a different strategy that I'm going to be pursuing to actually get rid of that felony so that I can then serve on a jury. But yeah, I decided not to play the paperwork game. So no, I cannot vote at this stage.
Yeah, I think it's important that people who don't have experience with people who've gone through the prison system, like there's a lot of people who have no idea that once you have a felony that you can't vote unless you jump through all those hoops and go through the effort to restore your own rights that were given to you as a citizen. And this is I mean, you got out of jail, 2005 was the last?
It was actually 2003, even further back. Yeah. 17 years in July.
Yeah, and then for 17
that I've
years,
established that I'm not like a psycho killer by now, right?
Yeah, like you were a psycho killer before with your nonviolent.
Right. Yeah.
So now what have you been up to in the last 17 years since you are a free man now?
Yeah. So, after dealing with that whole work release experience, I really kind of had to come to terms with the fact that, I was going to run into a lot of the same nonsense if I stayed in Smallsville. Not Smallsville, it was actually Watkins Glen, but you know what I mean. Yeah. So I started thinking where am I going to go? And I would have loved to have gone back to Buffalo, but I didn't have a foothold there this time around like I did the last time. Because I had a drug offense, I was able to go to, and it was basically a halfway house, which was great because, what does that mean? No rent, no utilities. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed my time at Altamont House in Buffalo. Let me just say that for all of its flaws. But so I had a foothold in New York. I had some family in New York. So I came to New York. I chose to come to New York upon my release. And that was in 2003. And New York's been good to me. I'm pretty over the place at this point, but New York's been good to me. I almost immediately started dabbling in acting and modeling, which, what can I say? The culture really isn't for me. Whatever. Let me just say that the culture really isn't for me. No judgments on anybody who it is for, but it wasn't really for me. But I did have a good time doing that, a little bit of extra gigs here and, a little bit of role laying on the floor. And what was the name of that show? I think it was called Third Watch. Laying on the floor to rave, overdosing, in that episode. Fun stuff like that.
But then I decided... You're never one for sit still, look pretty. That's not your jam.
It's just not my jam. Yeah, I mean, there are different things that weren't really my jam, but it was cool. I enjoyed it while it was, but I decided not to really try to pursue that heavily. What I did really take to, and what kind of became really natural, like fitting like a glove for me, was personal training and martial arts training. I was into martial arts when I was younger. One of the things that people don't tell you, well, I guess I'm sure some people do, but I'll tell you again, being in prison for an extended period of time, and I think anything over a year, honestly, counts as an extended period of time. It really messes with your identity and your sense of self, especially if you're younger. Maybe if I'd been 40 when that happened, God forbid, but maybe if I'd been 40 when that happened, it wouldn't have had such an effect. But I can honestly say that, I picked up some personality traits that weren't really true to me. And I forgot about certain things that really were true to me. But I was just taken out of that world for such a long period of time. It was about 2.5 years. And it took some time to get that back. Like, I remember one day I was watching The Matrix, and I was like, dang, this is a martial arts movie. How did I never notice that before? I used to love martial arts. What have I been doing? And so I started getting back into it. But, you forget that. So you can't practice martial arts in prison. Let me tell you what. So, that was just out the window. So anyway, come back to all of that stuff. And I started working as a fitness trainer for the once fabulous David Barton gyms in New York. They're defunct now. But that was their glory days back in the early 2000s. And it was great. I was in Chelsea, experiencing a totally different culture than what I was used to in upstate New York. And it was cool. Like, it was very eye-opening, just to see how people can live radically differently, and it's fine. This was new to me, a guy growing up in rural upstate New York, to experience those things. But I would say that was probably the first memorable chunk of time, doing that for David Barton in Chelsea. Yeah, it was good. Didn't you come see me there once? I can't remember.
I did not there yet. I came to see you in 2005, maybe 2006.
Okay. So I might have still been doing.
I just remember it was cold as hell.
Yeah.
We were out in the city, but it was so cold. And yeah, we toured around and had all sorts of good times. But I'm pretty sure that I came to see you after you got off parole, and I can't remember exactly when that was. That would have
probably been about 2005. Yeah, sounds about right.
And I mean, it was really cool to be able to have this friendship that started as a relationship, but it was always kind of underneath all of it, we were just going to be friends forever, no matter what happened. And so it was nice to be like, oh, I need to get the hell out of here. I'm going to go see you in New York, and we'll just have fun for a weekend and do our thing. And life shows up, life happens, things are crazy.
Life happens.
You keep living your life, I keep living my life. And at some point in the couple years after that, you wrote your first book. And I do remember writing you letters in prison and encouraging you to start writing some stories, which
that you did.
I'm not saying it's all me shoving you in that direction, but I'm glad that you actually did. And
I was listening.
Can't believe that you wrote a freaking book before I wrote a book. Let alone that you've written.
I mean, I definitely didn't see that coming either. Yeah.
I just keep adding to my books. They're 500,000 pages long now.
I know how that goes. Yeah.
So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about your two books and how they came to be, and
sure.
what it means to you to become a published author and kind of a fitness guru, and kind of to bridge those two worlds. Because most people, I mean, from the first day that I met you, before we actually knew each other, you know, fitness persona has this kind of gym rat kind of bonehead type thing, and you're that's not me at all. I just look like this, and I just love that you're just screw that. I'm gonna break this stereotype, and I'm gonna be published author, and I'm gonna do this, and this is all of it. That all of it is you, and I think that's great.
Thank you, John. Well, look, you mentioned the superhero thing at the beginning of our discussion, and I really think that is actually a valuable model, actually, to tell you the truth, not to be funny. We look at some of the best, most inspiring superheroes, right? Like a Batman or a Superman, or a Black Panther or a Captain America, right? Mm-hmm. They've got some things in common for all of their differences. Every single one of them pretty smart. Every single one of them. Arguably, Batman in his psychosis may be the smartest, but all of them smart, okay? All of them jacked. All of them. So what's cool about that? Like, what's super about that? Well, I mean, look, not that we all have to be the same, but if you can be physically strong, why not be physically strong? It'll make your laundry bag lighter. It'll make your kids lighter. It'll make you capable of defending your family. I mean, there's no downside to being strong. Why not be well informed and capable of like really thinking about issues and forming independent opinions? Why not? Why be a one-dimensional dum-dum, right? I mean, so at some point, like yourself, I kind of was like, you know what? I could be kind of like a superhero. That'd be great. I think I want to do that. And so being that I like to read already, I wanted to see if I could write a book. I confess, I was interested in how much money I could make off of it, but I also wanted to see, can I put together a good story that's fun and readable and get it published? It was kind of like a personal challenge. And so I did, and I'll grab it real quick. So I did, and I wrote this book, Long Night Moon, and
it's so good. This book is so good. It's so good.
Thank you. I think it's pretty good. I mean, it's definitely an original story. You've not read a story that flows quite like this, that's for sure. And but I didn't make a bunch of money off of it. I mean, and it is what it is. It's fine. I'm very proud to have having written it. It was something that I knew that if I didn't really go for it, it wasn't going to happen. And so I carved out time when my son, as you know, I have a son who's 11 now. When my son was still an infant, and I knew there was very little I could do to help his mother out. He was breastfeeding and sleeping and pooping. I mean, I would change the diapers, but ain't a whole lot else for a man to do that first year, right? So I decided to take that time and really get into writing the book. And I learned an awful lot about myself, about the writing process. I mean, it was really an educational experience, because you go through the process yourself. I mean, you have to fight with yourself. You write things that you swear are great, and then you come back to it later and you're like, actually, that just sucks. I need to take that out. But I really like it. I don't want to delete it. So, there's this interesting internal struggle that happens as you're putting together something like that. But yeah, really empowering to create something. Anybody out there who doesn't have something that they work on creatively, and I mean that in the literal sense, creating. I encourage you to get something. I don't really even care what it is, because there's just something really special about creating something, whatever that is for you. So anyway, that was my first one. That's the novel. And then the second one, because I got really passionate about health, this is another aspect of that whole superhero thing. I was like, it would be totally uncool to be like all like, in my 30s, and then I get to 50 and I'm going to fall apart. Like, that's not a good look. So I started getting into learning about health and longevity and I mean, Janna, this opens up a can of worms that I know that you're hip to, at least to an extent. I mean, now we start looking at what's the environmental impact. What happens to these animals, before they end up in the plastic package? You know what I mean? Like, what's happening to the dirt? What's happening to me? So, that was educational. So I wanted to write a book about health and nutrition. And so, that was book number 2.
So your second book, tell everybody the title.
So it is called 5 Things You Can Do Now. I think I have, give me 1 second. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We've got 2 different covers here. The ebook has 1 cover and we haven't switched it over. Anyway, this is 5 Things You Can Do Now. And I actually put this together with somebody else, but I mean, if you know me and you read it, you'll be like, oh, that's him talking. But, this was definitely a collaboration. But anyway, 5 Things You Can Do Now is really a book about the simplest things that you can do to improve your health, pretty much no matter who you are. There are some people that are going to be way beyond this, and you know who you are. But for the average individual, a change in your water consumption would probably benefit you. A change in your sleep habits would probably benefit you. Paying attention to certain things that are in the food or not in the food would probably benefit you. So, just like I said, a few things that would have a big impact on the average individual. I think it's going to be really tough for us to see lasting positive change in society if we are not individually looking at ourselves and say, okay, am I in a state of mental and physical health? Because I don't know about anybody else, but like when I'm feeling crappy, I'm behaving crappy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I love this book because it's really accessible to people. Like, it's not saying like, oh, get yourself healthy by getting a gym membership and like buying all these supplements and all this. Like, it's none of that at all. It's like realistic, easy to implement things that you can do and be like, hey, if you never thought about how much water you're actually drinking all day long, think about it. Like, somebody might have told you that like drinking 9 cups of coffee counts the same as drinking 9 glasses of water, but it does not.
That's right.
I mean, drinking 9 cups of coffee is better than drinking 0 glasses of water, but it's not as good as drinking 9 glasses of water. And just little things like that make making small changes that you can then notice that they kind of build on each other. The same thing, like, that an object in motion remains in motion. So like you start with the first chapter and you're like, okay, I'm going to drink more water.
Right.
And it's funny because like, I don't read too many ebooks. But I happened to get that book as an ebook. And so I was reading through it and like reviewing it the other day. And I was like, oh yeah, I can drink more water. So I've actually been like actively filling up my water bottle more often because I was like rereading this book. And it's that
simple. Yeah.
Exactly. So there'll be links to that book. The first book is currently being reformatted and has been removed from Amazon, correct?
Yeah, I took it off Amazon. All I can say is, I got a little beef with Bezos. I'm going to leave it at that. But yeah, I'm going to be putting it up on Smashwords, which is where the other one, 5 Things You Can Do Now, is on Smashwords. I got to get it reformatted from the Kindle format so that it can be up on Smashwords. Yeah.
Cool. So the links to the second book, and whenever it's ready, the links to the first book, I'll update it to get those up there so you can go and check out the cool books. So at the end of all of the podcasts, because we're getting a little close on time, I ask all of the guests the same 5 questions because I think it's really interesting to see everyone's different takes on the same question. So it's kind of a little bit like a job interview. It's kind of fun. But the first question is, tell me about an experience that shaped who you are today.
Wow. Okay. I got one for you. And I know you know this one, but let's throw it out here because it's fun and it definitely is an appropriate answer to your question. So once upon a time when I was 17, I decided, and mind you, this is in hyper rural upstate New York. I decided that it would be a good idea to hang out with a friend of mine and get blind drunk and then sit by the side of a road. Now I say a road, people think of a road and they imagine cars and lights. Talking about a road out in the middle of nowhere. There's a cow pasture over here and there's a cow pasture over there. I decided that it would be a good idea to hang out by the road with my friend and just drink ourselves stupid to the point where we both passed out in the road. The one car that came down that road all night long managed to run me over. And it broke my ankle and it took a chunk of skin out of the back of my other leg and stuff like that. It messed me up pretty good, but thank God, nothing over my head or, whatever the case may be. Long story short, how did that benefit me and what did that do for me and make me what I am? Well, it was an enormous wake-up call. Number one, you could be dead right now, so you should make every other day after this count for something. Number two, drinking a lot of alcohol is a guaranteed ticket to stupid events in life. It's going to look different depending on who you are. But for me, it looked like a pair of taillights moving off into the distance while I wake up in the road all busted up. So what I got out of that was don't drink yourself stupid. And I never have since.
Yeah. Also gave you 6 screws, 2 pins, and a plate in your leg.
That's right. You got it. Good memory.
Metal detectors forever and ever.
Yeah.
Okay, number 2. When you feel defeated or overcome, what do you tell yourself to keep going?
Well, that's a dang good question.
Thank you.
I don't feel that way very often, but if I think that back to the last major challenge that I had, which caused me to bump up against those feelings, I would say that it is my awareness of time that helps me to put it in perspective. And what I tell myself is, this too shall pass. Now, maybe not in those exact words, but that's what it boils down to. Without getting into it, I remember when I was dealing with a legal issue that was really challenging. It occurred to me as I'm agonizing over all this, I was like, one day, these lawyers, one day soon, actually, because they're old and not in very good condition, one day soon, these lawyers are going to be dead and I'm still going to be alive, looking and sounding fabulous. So that put a smile on my face. And then I also thought to myself, the thing that I'm concerned about losing, I'm not actually going to lose. I may have to do without it temporarily, but inevitably I get that back. Mm-hmm. So I think that time, recognizing that everything in time will pass, that's what helps me to pull back from the brink. Yeah.
Okay. So we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but tell me about a way that you overcame a failure or a mistake and what you learned from it. Total job.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could come at that one a lot of different ways, but let me make a parenting example out of this. Once upon a time, I was asking my son to do something that was just a little bit beyond his abilities. And, but he's a smart kid. Sometimes I forget how old he was. This was a few years ago. I want to say he was 8 at the time, but I think I had like 14-year-old expectations for him because he's so smart. He's also kind of a big kid for his age too. And then I kind of caught myself a couple of minutes after I'd gotten done being like, and I was like, oh man, this is not, this is not right. This is not fair. Like, I'm probably not making him feel very good right now. And there's no need for this. Like, hello, you forget that he's 8 years old. So look, I just immediately recognized my mistake, and I went to the person whom I had wronged, that being my, at the time, 8-year-old son, and I just apologized to him. Like, you know what, man, I'm really, really sorry. Like, I screwed up that. I shouldn't have done that. I think I got that attitude from my father, and I don't want to do that to you. So I'm sorry. This is where that comes from. Yeah, we'll talk about this later. So, that's one way where I go about, trying to overcome, imperfections, right?
I do love that there's a little mini you running around there in the world. It's great.
Well, hopefully wiser, but yes.
Yes, I feel that having my oldest kid is like hella smart. Like, has always, since the minute he came out, like you could see it in his face that he like understood things that a newborn baby would not get. Like, you can tell. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely, there's a lot of times where I'm like, in my head, I have this inner dialogue that obviously I, got from my parents. It's like, damn it, kid, like, why don't you get not to do that? Or why did you do that? And I'm like, he's 4.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Expecting him to have like emotional intelligence and to be able to control his emotions in ways that most adults can't do. And I'm like, wait. Like, he may know the names of like all the reptiles in the entire world, but like he doesn't have that emotional maturity, and most people will probably never have that. And so it's definitely a good reminder to give people more grace than we usually do.
Absolutely. No, well said. Absolutely.
Number 4, what one trait or habit is most responsible for keeping you on track?
These are great questions, John. I'm glad you asked them to people. Seriously. Speaking for myself, I think that it is I'm a man of principle. I'll do things that don't necessarily benefit me personally because I want to uphold a principle. You know, for better or for worse, you know, when I see something going down on the subway. I mean, I remember one time, you know, this guy come through where the train cars connect, you know, you walk through the doors. He come through the train cars, had his penis out. And, you know, there was a woman and her kid, no joke. And there was a woman and her kid sitting there. She's like, oh my God, like covering her kid, you know. I had to get involved. It obviously didn't benefit me in any way. I mean, that, you know, that's not really something that I want to deal with, quite frankly, but it needed to be dealt with. And so, you know, so things like that, you know, matters of principle. So I think that being principled and being willing to inconvenience myself or, you know, take a risk to uphold principles that I think are important, you know, such as law and order and decency, right? You know, just to reference that situation we were just talking about. I think that really is one of the things, because that desire to uphold principle and live in a principled manner keeps me from doing all kinds of things that I might otherwise do. Like, you know, I could be an evil genius. You know, like I have definitely mapped out how to rob this and kill that and do all of these different things in my younger years. And you know, but I always came to a place where I was like, you can't do that. That would be so wrong. And, you know, so that's the end of it. So, yeah, I think being principled is really what has kept me from crossing the line. Yep. Time and again.
I love how different everyone's answers to this are. Because some people are like, oh, I make to-do lists every day. And you're like, I just make a conscious choice not to rob banks.
Basically, yeah. Or, but you know what I mean? Not to be choppy to people. No, you know what I mean? Like, you're right. Rob banks, absolutely. Let's not do that. And then all the way down here, like, let's not get on this person's case for being stupid. They may have been born that way. You know what I mean? Like, simple stuff. All full spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, number 5, the last question. What's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten, and what advice would you give other people?
Wow. Oh my, that is a beast. That is a beast. Well, I could say that one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was to, you know, always be true to yourself. And I know that's not very original, but I think good advice is, you know, you tend to hear it in multiple places because it's good advice, right? I think be true to yourself is really important. You know, the things that I do to make a living nowadays, if you want to call it that, I mean, I do them because I want to do them. There's a lot of other things I could be doing just to make money, but that's not how I want to operate, because I'm keenly aware that although I expect to live a long time, there's going to come a day where, you know, I'm done and I'll be fertilizer. And I want the days between now and then to be lived on my terms. So I think it's very important people be true to themselves. No one ever was laying on their deathbed like, oh God, I should have spent more time at the office. That has never happened. You know what I mean? So make sure that you're living life on your terms. I think is super duper important, whatever that means for you. And then advice that I would give to people outside of that, honestly, learn law. And what I mean is not become a lawyer, learn about law, learn about common law, learn about American jurisprudence, learn how to read and understand these different documents, learn the words involved. You know, I love this country. It's not a democracy. It was never supposed to be a democracy. It's a republic. It's a republic. I know that we hear everyone on television using the word democracy, but I promise it's a republic. So, you know, little things that we just don't know. This is how, over the course of decades, we get to a place where the authorities, from the police to the president, are doing their own thing. And we don't even know how to straighten it out because we don't know what straight is in terms of law. So that would be my advice. Learn law.
Aw. Well, thank you so much for being on my podcast.
It's been an honor.
See you virtually in person. Yeah. Since we do live far apart and the world is insane, and it's not like there's a whole lot of like traveling around and hanging out with people these days.
Truly.
But thank you all for watching / listening to the Reach the Stars podcast. Definitely check out the show notes. go and buy Lionel's book. And if you are in New York City and you are looking for personal training and general ass kicking in general, you should check out his website. It will be up in the show notes. And if you like the podcast, give us a review, share with a friend, back us on Patreon. We have a really cool community on Facebook for all of the guests and the patrons, and for me to kind of communicate with each other and share ideas and network together. So if you want to be in on that, you got to be a patron. And it's only $3 a month to start being a patron. And I really hope that what we're doing here is special and magical and worth $3 a month. So thank you all for being here, and we will see you next time. Bye.
A single interaction has the power to change your life forever. This is a place for the stories of those moments. Stories of pursuing dreams, overcoming tragedy and failure, of coming back to life after so much of what feels like dying, of continuing on with only a vision as a map. This is the place where those moments live on. Come sit by the fire, look up at the stars, and be forever changed too.
Thank you for being with us on the Reach the Stars podcast. Our theme music is generously provided by Byrocratic. You can find him on bandcamp.com. Thank you to all of our current patrons, guests, and everyone else who helps make this dream a reality. We are so proud to be building this amazing community with all of you. If you love this podcast, please consider sharing with a friend, leaving a review on iTunes, and becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/reachthestars. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see the videos of these conversations. We'll see you next week. In the meantime, do something cool and tell us about it.